Lily's eyes blinked open to the golden morning light filtering through the cabin's worn curtains. For a moment, everything felt normal. The familiar scent of pine, the distant chirp of cardinals, and the promise of pancakes that always seemed to waft from the kitchen on Saturday mornings. "Grandma Ellie," she called, sliding her small feet into fuzzy slippers shaped like rabbits, a gift from Grandma on her 7th birthday just 2 months ago. The strange silence that answered made the hair on Lily's arms stand up. Grandma Ellie was always awake before her, humming old songs while mixing batter or stoking the wood stove. "Grandma?" Lily called again, padding through the narrow hallway of the cabin they shared at the edge of Pinewood. The kitchen doorway framed a scene that would forever divide Lily's life into before and after. Grandma Ellie lay crumpled on the worn linoleum floor, one arm stretched toward the old rotary phone that had tumbled beside her. A half-mixed bowl of pancake batter sat on the counter, a testament to interrupted routine. "Grandma!" Lily rushed forward, dropping to her knees. "Wake up, please wake up!" Grandma Ellie's face looked wrong, slack on one side, her usually bright eyes closed, but she was breathing, each shallow exhale a whisper against Lily's palm when she held it near her grandmother's mouth like they'd shown in the school first aid presentation. Lily reached for the fallen phone, her small fingers trembling as she lifted the receiver and dialed the only emergency number she knew. Nothing, not even a dial tone. The ancient phone line must have gone dead again, a common occurrence in their remote corner of the mountains. "It's okay, Grandma. I'll fix this," Lily promised, trying to keep her voice steady the way Grandma had taught her. "Big girls don't panic when there's work to be done," she always said. Lily tried lifting her grandmother, but at 7 years old, her arms lacked the strength to raise the unconscious woman. She ran outside, scanning the dirt road that served as their driveway. No cars. Their nearest neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, had left for his daughter's wedding 2 states away. Town was 4 miles downhill. 4 miles of forest paths, the creek crossing, and the old bridge before reaching anyone who could help. The school bus made the journey each weekday, but today was Saturday, and the next bus wouldn't come until Monday morning. Back inside, Lily knelt beside her grandmother, noticing how her chest still rose and fell, but her skin felt cool. Grandma needed help, and nobody was coming. "I can do this," Lily whispered, remembering all the times Grandma Ellie had told her she was strong, stronger than anyone knew. "I have to do this." With determination beyond her years, Lily gathered blankets, wrapping her grandmother as snugly as she could. She dragged the old camping tarp from the shed and laid it beside Grandma Ellie. It took every ounce of her strength to roll her grandmother onto the makeshift sled. Through the kitchen window, Lily could see clouds gathering over the distant peaks. A storm was coming, and with it the temperature would drop. There was no time to wait and hope for a random visitor. "We're going to town," Lily said, knotting the tarp's corner into a loop she could grip, "and you're going to be okay." With a deep breath that filled her small chest, Lily opened the cabin door and began to pull, one step at a time, her precious cargo behind her. The journey that would change everything had begun. The path ahead stretched impossibly far as Lily took her first determined steps away from the cabin. She glanced back at Grandma Ellie, wrapped tightly in blankets on the top, her silver hair spilling out from the cocoon Lily had created. Each tug on the makeshift sled sent burning pain through Lily's small shoulders, but she pressed forward, her rabbit slippers already soaked through from the morning dew. "You're going to be okay," Lily whispered, though she wasn't sure if the words were for her grandmother or herself. As she pulled, Lily's mind drifted to last summer, sitting on the cabin's porch swing. Grandma Ellie had been braiding her hair while telling stories about Lily's mother, tales of a brave woman who'd climbed mountains and swum in wild rivers before she went to heaven when Lily was just 3. "You have her spirit," Grandma had said, her fingers gentle against Lily's scalp. strong as the oak trees and twice as stubborn. That same evening, as shadows lengthened across their yard, Grandma Ellie had made her promise something. "In this world, Lily girl, we take care of our own. That's a sacred thing, a promise that runs in our blood." Lily had nodded solemnly, not fully understanding then what that promise might someday ask of her. The tarp snagged on a root, jolting Lily back to the present. She adjusted her grip on the knotted corner and kept moving, her breath forming small clouds in the increasingly cool air. The coming storm had cast an eerie darkness over the morning, making the forest ahead look like something from one of Grandma's fairy tales, the kind with wolves and witches and children who had to be brave. A low moan from the tarp made Lily's heart leap. She dropped to her knees beside her grandmother, whose eyes remained closed, but whose face had tensed with pain. "I'm getting help," Lily assured her, smoothing a stray lock of silver hair from her forehead. "I promised I'd take care of you, remember?" There had been many promises between them. Promises when Lily's mother died and Grandma Ellie had come to raise her. Promises when they'd moved to the cabin for mountain air and peace, as Grandma called it. Promises about school and growing up right. But the most important promise had been just last month, when Grandma had clutched her chest after carrying firewood and had to sit down suddenly. "If anything happens to me, you go for help," she'd instructed Lily after catching her breath. "Down the mountain, across the creek, past old Baker's property, and straight to town. Don't stop for anyone unless you know them well. Promise me, Lily girl." Lily had promised, thinking it was just another of Grandma's just-in-case lessons, like storing extra candles or knowing which berries were poisonous. Now, as the first raindrops began to fall, that promise weighed heavier than anything Lily had ever carried. She struggled back to her feet, wrapping the tarp's edge around her hand until it bit into her skin. The pain helped keep her focused. "We can make it to the creek before lunch," she told the unconscious form behind her, "and maybe we'll meet someone on the path." But even as she said it, Lily knew the chances were slim. Saturday mornings on. This side of the mountain belonged to the birds and squirrels, not hikers or rangers. "It doesn't matter," Lily said firmly, setting her jaw the way Grandma did when facing difficult tasks. "I'm taking you to town if it's the last thing I do." And with that, she pulled harder, leaving behind safety with each determined step. The rain began falling more steadily, pattering against the tarp and dampening Lily's thin pajamas beneath her hastily grabbed jacket. She hadn't thought to change clothes before leaving. Grandma Ellie's still form had erased all other concerns from her mind. Now, the chill seeped into her bones as she dragged her precious burden down the muddy path. Lily paused at the fork in the trail, struggling to remember which way led to the shortcut Grandma always took when they walked to town for supplies. Left seemed right, but doubt clouded her judgment as the forest looked different in the grey. Morning light, more menacing, less familiar. "Which way, Grandma?" she whispered, glancing back at Ellie's pale face. The silence pressed in around her, broken only by the increasing patter of raindrops on leaves. Lily had never felt so alone. Back at the cabin, even when Grandma was busy, there had been the knowledge that help was just a call away. But the broken phone flashed in Lily's memory, the dead tone when she desperately dialed for help. Grandma had mentioned getting it, fixed last week when the line crackled during her call with Aunt Judith in California. "These mountain storms play havoc with the wires," she'd explained to Lily. "We'll have the repairman out next time he's in the area." But the repairman hadn't come, and now that neglected repair might cost Grandma Ellie her life. Lily chose the left path, tugging the tarp over a particularly rough section of trail. Her arms trembled with the effort, but she refused to stop. The rain made the tarp heavier, the mud more treacherous, but fear of what might happen if she failed pushed her forward. She thought briefly of Mr. Jenkins, their only neighbor within a mile. His empty cabin mocked her from the rise above their own. If only he hadn't gone to that wedding. If only he'd been home to drive them to town in his old blue pickup. If only, if only. Grandma Ellie always said that if-onlys were just ways of avoiding what needed doing. Life isn't built on wishes, Lily girl, she'd say. It's built on putting one foot in front of the other when things get tough. So Lily put one small foot in front of the other, ignoring the blisters forming where her wet slippers rubbed against her heels. She tried humming one of Grandma's songs to keep her spirits up, but the tune died in her throat as she realized how quiet the forest had become. No birds, no squirrels chattering, just the sound of rain and her own labored breathing. A particularly steep section of path loomed ahead. Lily studied it with growing despair. How could she possibly drag the tarp down that slope without sending both of them tumbling? She thought of running ahead to town, finding adults who could come back with a proper stretcher. It would be easier, faster. But the memory of Grandma's warnings echoed in her mind. Never leave someone who's hurt. The wilderness is unpredictable. Animals, weather, the injured person getting worse. You stay together no matter what. Lily couldn't leave her grandmother, alone, unconscious in the rain. What if she stopped breathing? What if the rain soaked through the blankets and made her even colder? What if... No, Lily said aloud, her voice small but determined in the vast silence. We stay together. She repositioned herself, digging her heels into the mud for better traction, and began the painstaking process of navigating the slope, inch by careful inch. Each step was a battle against gravity and exhaustion, but Lily fought on. There was no one to call, no one to help, no one but a 7-year-old girl with a promise to keep and the fierce love that burned in her heart, warming her even as the rain grew colder. The slope proved even more treacherous than Lily had feared. Rain turned the earth to slick mud that clung to her slippers and made each step a precarious balancing act. Twice she nearly lost her footing, catching herself just before she tumbled down. The tarp, with its precious cargo, required all her concentration to control. Slow and steady, Lily murmured, echoing Grandma Ellie's favorite phrase when teaching her to knit or bake or do anything that couldn't be rushed. Slow and steady wins the race. She braced her feet against a protruding tree root, allowing herself and the tarp to slide a controlled few inches at a time. The rain plastered her auburn hair to her face, but she couldn't spare a hand to push it away. Every part of her focused on the descent. When they finally reached level ground, Lily's legs trembled with fatigue. She'd never attempted anything so physically demanding before. 7-year-olds weren't meant to drag adults through forests in rainstorms, yet here she was doing exactly that. She knelt beside her grandmother, adjusting the blankets that had shifted during their descent. Grandma's breathing seemed shallower now, her skin cooler to the touch, despite the layers wrapped around her. We made it down the big hill, Lily told her, as if Grandma might hear and be proud. The creek's next, but first we need to go through the pine grove. Remember how you showed me the mushrooms there last fall? Talking helped stave off the crushing loneliness. Lily had never felt so small, so insignificant against the vastness of the wilderness around them. The trees loomed overhead, ancient sentinels indifferent to the tiny human drama unfolding beneath them. Lily checked that the knot in the tarp was still secure, then resumed her position. The constant pulling had rubbed her palms raw, but she barely noticed the pain now. Her world had narrowed to this single task: move forward, keep Grandma safe, reach town. The pine grove appeared through the curtain of rain, its dense canopy offering some relief from the downpour. The path narrowed here, forcing Lily to maneuver more carefully. Pine needles cushioned their journey, making the tarp slide more easily for a blessed stretch of trail. "See? This part's not so bad," Lily said, her voice echoing strangely among the trees. A sound to her right froze her mid-step, a rustling in the underbrush, too large for a squirrel. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she remembered Grandma's Warnings about bears waking from hibernation in early spring, hungry and irritable. The rustling stopped. 5 seconds passed. 10. Lily held her breath until her lungs burned, then exhaled shakily when nothing emerged. Just the wind, perhaps, or her imagination heightened by fear and exhaustion. She pressed on, but now every shadow seemed to harbor potential threats. The forest that had been her playground all her life suddenly felt alien and hostile. Each unfamiliar sound sent jolts of adrenaline through her small body. "I'm not afraid," she whispered, though her quivering lip betrayed the lie. "We're going to make it." Halfway through the pine grove, Lily spotted the lightning-struck tree that marked where the path split again. Left led deeper into the forest before eventually reaching town. Right led to the creek crossing and the shorter route. Lily chose right without hesitation. Time was precious now. Grandma's breathing had grown more labored, and the grey pallor of her skin frightened Lily more than any forest creature could. As they emerged from the pines, the full force of the rain hit them again. Ahead lay open meadow, then the creek, swollen with spring runoff and today's rainfall. Lily squared her small shoulders and leaned into the task. Each step took them farther from everything familiar and deeper into a journey no child should have to face alone. But she wasn't truly alone. She carried with her Grandma Ellie's strength, her wisdom, and the love that bound them together. The meadow stretched before Lily like an ocean of rain-flattened grass. Under different circumstances, she might have run through it, arms wide, chasing butterflies as she'd done countless times with Grandma Ellie watching from the shade. Today, each step felt like wading through molasses, the tarp dragging heavier. With every yard gained. Halfway across, Lily noticed how the clouds had darkened from pearl to charcoal. The rain fell in sheets now, reducing visibility and turning the distant tree line into a smudged watercolor painting. Thunder rumbled ominously, close enough to make Lily's skin prickle with apprehension. "We need shelter," she told Grandma's still form, her voice nearly lost in the downpour. Lily scanned the meadow, spotting a cluster of dense bushes near the forest edge. She altered course, pulling the tarp at an angle that made her shoulders scream in protest. When they reached the overgrowth, Lily carefully positioned Grandma beneath the thickest foliage, where the ground remained relatively dry. She checked Grandma's pulse the way the school nurse had taught during Health Week, pressing 2 fingers against the side of her neck. The heartbeat felt faint but present, a butterfly trapped beneath skin. Lily adjusted the blankets, tucking them more securely around Grandma's shoulders, and wiped raindrops from her pale face. "Just a little rest," she promised, though anxiety gnawed at her stomach. Every minute counted, but pushing forward in this deluge might be even more dangerous. Lightning flashed, illuminating the meadow in stark white. 1,000, 2, 1,003, crack! The thunder followed too quickly. The storm was directly overhead now. Grandma Ellie had taught her to respect mountain storms. They roll in fast and hit hard, she'd explained last summer when they'd rushed to collect laundry from the line as dark clouds gathered. Best to wait them out somewhere safe. Lily huddled beside her grandmother, shivering as water dripped from her hair down her back. She hadn't thought to grab a hat or raincoat in her panic to leave. The jacket she wore, a light windbreaker, provided minimal protection against the elements. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The thunder gradually receded, though rain continued steadily. Lily's stomach growled, reminding her that she'd left without breakfast. She hadn't thought to bring food or water, another oversight that now seemed glaring. "We can't stay here," she decided, speaking aloud to bolster her courage. "We need to reach the creek before dark." With renewed determination, Lily resumed her position at the head of the makeshift sled. The tarp, now thoroughly soaked, felt twice as heavy. Her arms trembled with the strain, but she gritted her teeth and pulled. The forest path beyond the meadow narrowed considerably, hemmed in by dense underbrush on both sides. fallen branches. From the storm created obstacles that Lily navigated with painstaking care. Each time the tarp caught on something, she had to backtrack and reposition it, her frustration mounting with every delay. "Remember when we picked blackberries here last summer?" Lily asked Grandma, maintaining the one-sided conversation that kept her spirits up. "You said the best ones grow where it's hardest to reach." The memory strengthened her resolve. The path to help would be difficult. Lily had always known that. But the reward at the end would be worth all the scratches and struggles. As afternoon approached, the rain finally slackened to a drizzle. Lily's pace improved slightly, though exhaustion had settled into her bones like a permanent resident. Her rabbit slippers, now ruined beyond recognition, squished with every step. Through a break in the trees, Lily caught her first glimpse of the creek ahead. Normally a gentle, bubbling stream they could hop across on stones, it had transformed into a churning, angry river that spanned twice its usual width. Lily's heart sank. This would be her greatest challenge yet, and Grandma Ellie's life depended on her finding a way across. Lily stood frozen at the creek's edge, watching the swollen waters rush past with frightening speed. Normally clear enough to count the pebbles beneath, the creek now churned brown with mud and debris. A fallen branch hurtled downstream, caught in the current's powerful grip. "How do we cross this?" she whispered, panic rising in her throat. As if in answer, a memory surfaced. Grandma Ellie walking alongside the creek last autumn, pointing out features Lily had never noticed before. "Water's never quite the same twice," Grandma had said, her weathered hand gesturing to the flowing stream. "Looks gentle here, but see that spot where the surface is smooth, but the water bulges up? That's a hidden rock, and where you see swirling, that's a deep spot." Lily had only half listened then, more interested in skipping stones than learning creek geography. Now she strained to recall every word, every lesson Grandma had casually shared during their woodland walks. "Look for the widest part," echoed Grandma's voice in her mind. "Water spreads thin there, shallower crossing." Lily swiped rain from her eyes and scanned upstream. About 30 yards away, the creek widened as it curved around a natural stone outcropping. Could that be a safer crossing point? She dragged the tarp along the muddy bank, careful to keep a safe distance from the slippery edge. When they reached the wider section, Lily studied the water intently. The current seemed less violent here, but still formidable for a small girl with precious cargo. Another forgotten lesson floated to the surface of her memory. Last spring, when the creek had risen after heavy rains, Grandma had shown her how to test water depth using a stick. Lily scrambled to find a fallen branch long enough to serve her purpose. She dipped it into the rushing water, surprised when it only submerged about a foot before hitting bottom. The current tugged at the stick, but the water was shallower than it appeared. "I think we can make it," she told Grandma Ellie, whose breathing had developed a troubling rattle. "But I need to be smart about this." Grandma had always emphasized the importance of preparation. "Take the extra minute to do things right," she'd advise, rather than the extra hour to fix what went wrong. Following this wisdom, Lily searched the area for anything that might help. She found a length of wild grapevine hanging from a nearby tree, nature's rope. After testing its strength, she carefully tied one end to the tarp. "This way, if the current pulls you, I can hold on," she explained to Grandma. The other end she wrapped around her own waist, leaving enough slack to maneuver. Another memory surfaced as she prepared to enter the water, Grandma showing her how to cross a creek without getting swept away. "Sidestep! Don't face the current!" Grandma had demonstrated, moving carefully from stone to stone. "And keep your center of gravity low." Lily took a deep breath, removed her sodden slippers to gain better footing, and gently eased the tarp to the water's edge. The icy creek bit into her bare feet as she stepped in, but she barely registered the cold anymore. Inch by inch, she guided the makeshift sled into the water. The tarp wanted to float, trying to wrap around Grandma Ellie rather than slide smoothly across. Lily fought to keep it flat, her small hands trembling with the effort. Halfway across, her foot slipped on a mossy stone. She plunged knee-deep into the frigid water, biting her lip to keep from crying out. For one terrifying moment, the current threatened to pull both her and the tarp downstream. But Lily remembered to keep her body sideways, as Grandma had taught, distributing her weight to regain balance. 3 more careful steps brought them to the opposite bank. Soaked and shivering, Lily collapsed beside her grandmother, the relief of crossing overwhelming her momentarily. "We did it," she whispered, touching Grandma's cool cheek, "just like you taught me." The far side of the creek offered little respite from their journey's hardships. Lily's legs trembled uncontrollably as she dragged herself and the tarp fully onto the muddy bank. Her clothes clung to her small frame, the added weight of water making every movement a struggle. Her feet, bare after abandoning her ruined slippers, were numb from the icy crossing. "We made it across, Grandma," Lily panted, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She collapsed beside the tarp, allowing herself 30 precious seconds of rest. The creek gurgled behind them, a reminder of the obstacle they'd overcome. But Lily knew the danger wasn't past. The crossing had soaked through the blankets surrounding Grandma Ellie, despite her best efforts to keep the tarp flat on the water's surface. With shaking fingers, Lily unwrapped the outer layer of blankets. As she feared, the moisture had seeped through to Grandma's clothes. The unconscious woman's skin felt colder than before, her breathing more labored. "You need to be." "Try," Lily said, fighting to keep panic from her voice. She glanced around desperately, spotting a cluster of pine trees whose dense branches had created a relatively dry patch of ground beneath. With the last reserves of her strength, Lily pulled the tarp to this natural shelter. The tarp had protected it from the worst of the water. Lily carefully rolled Grandma onto it, then began the process of removing the damp blankets. Beneath the outer layers, Grandma's nightgown was only slightly damp around the edges. Lily untied the cord from her waist, her fingers clumsy with cold. The remaining dry portion of the blanket she tucked around Grandma's torso, prioritizing her core as she'd learned during a school presentation on hypothermia. For the first time, she noticed how frail Grandma looked. The strong woman who chopped firewood and carried Lily on her shoulders now seemed shrunken and vulnerable. "You're going to be okay," Lily said fiercely, though tears threatened to spill from her eyes. "We're getting closer to town." A rustling in the underbrush behind her made Lily whirl around, her heart hammering against her ribs. A doe and her fawn emerged from between the trees, regarding the human interlopers with wary curiosity. For a breathless moment, the woodland creatures and the exhausted girl stared at each other across the clearing. Then, with a flick of their white tails, the deer bounded away. Lily took it as a good sign. If deer were moving about, perhaps the worst of the storm had passed. Indeed, the sky seemed marginally lighter through the canopy overhead, though daylight was clearly waning as afternoon stretched toward evening. The realization sent a chill through Lily that had nothing to do with her wet clothes. They needed to reach town before dark. The forest path ahead, challenging enough in daylight, would become impossible to navigate once night fell. Lily checked Grandma's pulse again, relieved to find it still present, though no stronger than before. She tucked the makeshift blanket more securely around the unconscious woman and retied the grapevine cord around her own waist. "We need to hurry," she told Grandma, resuming her position at the head of the tarp. The ground beyond their shelter sloped gently upward, not a steep climb, but a steady one that would tax Lily's depleted energy. She leaned forward, digging her bare toes into the soft earth for traction, and began the ascent. Each step became A small victory. Each yard gained a triumph of will over exhaustion. Lily's world narrowed to the rhythm of her movement. Pull, step, breathe, repeat. Her arms had long since passed the point of pain into a strange numbness. Her legs moved mechanically, as if disconnected from her conscious mind. As the path crested the small rise, the trees thinned enough to offer Lily her first glimpse of what lay ahead. The abandoned mill, and beyond it, the old bridge that would lead them to the outskirts of town. So close, yet still so far. "Just a little farther," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. "We're almost there, Grandma, almost there." The abandoned mill loomed ahead, its weathered timbers dark against the fading daylight. Once the heart of Pinewood before the logging company moved operations further north, the structure now stood as a hulking reminder of busier times. Lily had always found it fascinating from a distance, but forbidden. Grandma Ellie had strict rules about staying away from the deteriorating building. "That old place is nothing but tetanus and trouble," she'd warned. As Lily approached, dragging the tarp over increasingly uneven ground, she planned to give the mill a wide berth, but the distinct murmur of voices stopped her in her tracks. People, the first humans they'd encountered since leaving the cabin. Hope flared in Lily's chest. Help, at last. She opened her mouth to call out when Grandma's warnings about strangers echoed in her mind. Caution overrode desperation as she eased the tarp behind a thicket of bushes, concealing both herself and her grandmother from immediate view. 3 men had gathered near the mill's crumbling loading dock. Their voices carried on the damp air, rough and unfamiliar. Lily crouched lower, straining to hear. "Carter's late," said the tallest one, his bearded face partially obscured by a dirty baseball cap. "If he doesn't show with the merchandise by sunset, we're cutting him loose." "He'll be here," replied another, fidgeting with something metal that caught the fading light. "Too much money on the line." The word money piqued Lily's interest. Perhaps these men could help. She had $4 in her piggy bank back. At the cabin, saved from birthdays and tooth fairy visits, she could promise to pay them if they'd help get Grandma to town. She was about to step forward when the third man tossed something into the brush, a beer can that clattered against stone. The sound made Lily freeze. "Hear that?" the bearded man said sharply, his head turning toward Lily's hiding place. "Probably just a raccoon," the second man replied, but he too was scanning the tree line now. Lily held her breath, pressing, herself lower to the ground. Grandma Ellie's voice seemed to whisper in her ear, "Trust your instincts, Lily girl. If something feels wrong, it probably is." Everything about these men felt wrong. The bearded man took a step in her direction, his hand moving to his waistband. "I'm going to check it out." Terror gripped Lily's heart. If they found her, found Grandma, what would happen? These weren't the kind of strangers who'd rush an elderly woman to the hospital. These were the kind Grandma had warned about, the reason they always locked their doors at night, despite living in the peaceful mountains. Lily gently tugged on the tarp, easing it backward inch by silent inch. A twig snapped beneath her foot, impossibly loud in the tense silence. "There's definitely something out there," the bearded man called to his companions. He pulled out a flashlight, its beam cutting through the gathering dusk. Panic threatened to overwhelm Lily. They couldn't move fast enough to escape if the men decided to investigate thoroughly. Their only hope was to remain hidden until the strangers lost interest or left. The flashlight beam swept over the bushes just above where Lily crouched. She held perfectly still, scarcely daring to breathe. A small whimper escaped Grandma Ellie, the first sound she'd made in hours. Lily quickly placed her hand over Grandma's mouth, tears welling in her eyes at the necessity of the action. "Shh," she whispered, her lips close to her grandmother's ear. "Please, Grandma, be quiet." The beam paused, hovering just inches from their position. "Hey!" called the third man suddenly. "Car coming. Might be Carter." The flashlight swung away as headlights appeared on the distant logging road. Lily nearly collapsed with relief as the bearded man rejoined his companions, their attention diverted by the approaching vehicle. This was their chance. Staying low to the ground, Lily began pulling the tarp away from the mill site, following the tree line for cover. Each movement was painfully slow, carefully calculated to minimize noise. One thought burned in her mind. These men and whatever business they conducted were dangerous. They needed to get as far away as possible before being discovered. The old bridge waited ahead, their gateway to safety, if they could reach it undetected. Lily's arms burned as she dragged the tarp along the forest edge, keeping the mill and its dangerous occupants behind them. Every few seconds she glanced back, expecting to see the bearded man's flashlight cutting through the growing darkness or hear shouts of discovery. But the men remained focused on the arriving car, their voices now too distant to make out individual words. The sky had taken on an ominous greenish tinge that made Lily's stomach clench. Grandma Ellie had taught her to recognize the signs of severe weather. This unnatural color meant another storm was brewing, likely worse than the one they'd already endured. "We need to hurry," Lily whispered to her grandmother, who remained unresponsive save for the shallow rise and fall of her chest. The path toward the bridge narrowed, forcing Lily to pull the tarp through denser underbrush. Branches scratched her arms and face, adding small, stinging cuts to her growing collection of injuries. Her bare feet, already numbed from cold, now collected thorns and sharp pebbles, but she barely registered the pain. A distant rumble of thunder confirmed her fears about the approaching storm. Unlike the afternoon's downpour, this system sounded angry, dangerous. The air pressure dropped suddenly, making Lily's ears pop. Wind began to whistle through the trees, bending smaller saplings almost double. Just a little further to the bridge, she encouraged herself, her voice nearly lost in the rising gale. The first fat raindrops hit like tiny missiles, driven horizontally by the wind. Within seconds they were back where they started, soaked and increasingly cold. Lily's teeth chattered uncontrollably as she strained to see the path ahead, through the premature twilight caused by storm clouds. The bridge appeared through the curtain of rain, a simple wooden structure spanning the narrow gorge that separated the mill property from the outskirts of town. Under normal circumstances, it would be a 10-minute walk from the bridge to the first houses, but nothing about their journey had been normal. Lightning flashed, illuminating the bridge in stark white. The wooden railings looked weathered, missing planks in several sections. Worse, the creek that had given Lily so much trouble earlier fed into the gorge below, its swollen waters now churning 50 feet beneath the bridge's questionable planks. Lily hesitated at the bridge's entrance, torn between the danger of crossing and the certainty of danger if they remained on this side, with the storm intensifying and unknown men nearby. A terrifying crack split the air as lightning struck somewhere close, too close. The smell of burning wood filled her nostrils. Decision made, Lily pulled the tarp onto the bridge's first planks. The wood felt spongy underfoot, saturated from the day's rain. Each step produced an alarming creak that was barely audible over the howling wind. Halfway across, a particularly strong gust nearly knocked Lily off her feet. She dropped to her knees, clinging to the tarp's edge with white-knuckled determination. "We can make it!" she gasped, though fear threatened to paralyze her completely. More lightning, followed almost instantly by deafening thunder. The storm was directly overhead now, the full fury of mountain weather unleashed upon the small girl and her unconscious grandmother. A sound rose above even the thunder, a splintering crack from the bridge itself. Lily looked back to see one of the support beams shifting, weakened by water and wind. The entire structure shuddered beneath them. No time for caution now. Lily scrambled to her feet and pulled with renewed desperation, her small body somehow finding reserves of strength she didn't know existed. The tarp slid more easily on the wet wood, but the bridge's swaying made her stomach lurch with each step. 20 feet from safety, a section of railing tore loose, carried away by the wind like a child's toy. 15 feet, 10. The bridge groaned and shifted beneath them, threatening to collapse at any moment. With one final, superhuman effort, Lily dragged Grandma Ellie off the bridge and onto solid ground, just as another support beam gave way behind them. She collapsed beside the tarp, gasping for breath, rain mingling with tears of exhaustion and relief on her face. They'd crossed the last major obstacle. Town lights glimmered in the distance, barely visible through the storm, but unmistakably. There, help was finally within reach. Lightning illuminated the collapsed section of bridge, the wooden planks now dangling precariously above the gorge. Had they been 30 seconds slower, Lily realized, both she and Grandma would have plunged to certain death in the churning waters below. The thought sent a violent shudder through her exhausted body. No going back now. Their path forward was the only path. The violence of the storm seemed to ease slightly once they reached this side of the gorge, as if they'd passed through the worst of it. Rain still fell steadily, but the apocalyptic wind had diminished to occasional gusts. Lily took advantage of the relative calm to check on Grandma Ellie. What she saw frightened her more than anything they'd faced so far. Grandma's skin had taken on a bluish tinge, her breathing so shallow it was barely perceptible. When Lily touched her face, the skin felt like ice despite the blanket wrapped around her. "Please don't leave me," Lily whispered, her voice breaking. She pressed her small, filthy hand against Grandma's cheek. "Please hold on just a little longer." For the first time since their journey began, Lily allowed herself a moment of complete honesty. She was exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced. Her limbs felt like lead weights. Her head pounded with each heartbeat, and hunger gnawed at her stomach like a living thing. The enormity of what still lay ahead, perhaps another mile to the first houses where she might find help, seemed insurmountable. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, tears spilling down her cheeks. As if in answer, Grandma Ellie's eyelids fluttered, not opening fully but moving nonetheless. Her lips parted slightly, though no sound emerged. "Grandma?" Lily leaned closer, heart pounding with hope. "Can you hear me?" No further response came, but that small movement was enough to rekindle Lily's determination. Grandma was still fighting, still holding on. She couldn't give up now. Lily struggled to her feet, wincing as her battered soles made contact with the ground. She'd lost all feeling in her toes hours ago, which was probably a blessing considering the state they must be in. The grapevine rope she'd used to secure herself to the tarp had rubbed her waist raw, but she retied it anyway, needing the security it provided. "We're halfway there," she told Grandma, summoning confidence she didn't feel. "The hard part is behind us." This wasn't entirely true. The bridge and creek had been formidable obstacles, but the distance remaining posed its own challenges. Darkness had settled fully now, making the path difficult to discern. The town lights, which had seemed so encouraging earlier, appeared to mock her with their distant glow. Lily oriented herself toward those lights and began pulling once more. The ground here was more level, transitioning from forest to the fields that surrounded Pinewood proper. Under different circumstances, this would be the easier part of their journey. But now, with night fallen and her strength nearly depleted, each yard felt like a mile. Her mind began to play tricks on her as she trudged forward. Shadows seemed to move at the corners of her vision. Sounds, a branch snapping, leaves rustling, made her jump, her thoughts returning to the men at the mill. Had they discovered their presence? Were they following? "One step at a time," Lily murmured, Grandma Ellie's favorite saying becoming her mantra, "just one step at a time." The rain gradually tapered to a light drizzle, then stopped altogether. Stars appeared in patches between the dissipating clouds, offering just enough light to navigate by. The temperature dropped sharply in the storm's wake, causing Lily's wet clothes to cling even more uncomfortably to her shivering frame. As they approached the outskirts of town, Lily could make out individual buildings now, the steeple of the small church, the two-story elementary school, and closest to them, the scattered houses of the residential area. So close, yet still. So far. Lily fixed her eyes on the nearest house, a small bungalow with a porch light glowing like a beacon in the darkness. If she could just reach that light, this nightmare would end. Grandma would get help. Everything would be okay. With renewed purpose, Lily adjusted her grip on the tarp and pressed forward, one agonizing step at a time. The field between the collapsed bridge and the first house stretched endlessly before Lily, a dark expanse punctuated by the occasional silhouette of abandoned farm equipment. What would normally be a 15-minute walk for an adult had already consumed nearly an hour of her remaining strength. Each step became a negotiation with her failing body. "Remember when you taught me to ride my bike here last summer?" Lily asked Grandma Ellie, maintaining the one-sided conversation that kept her moving forward. "You said I was the fastest learner you'd ever seen." The memory of that golden afternoon, Grandma jogging alongside her wobbling bicycle, both of them, laughing, seemed to belong to another lifetime. Lily clung to it as she pulled the tarp through mud that sucked at her bare feet with each step. A dull thud from behind startled her. She turned to see the remaining section of the old bridge finally giving way, collapsing into the gorge with a distant crash. The sound sent shivers through Lily's exhausted frame, another reminder of how close they'd come to disaster. "We made it across just in time," she told Grandma, her voice trembling. "You always said I had good timing." The porch light that had seemed so attainable now flickered and went out, plunging that section of town into darkness. Power outage, Lily realized with sinking heart. The storm must have downed lines somewhere. Without the guiding light, the darkness felt more oppressive, the distance more daunting. Lily squinted, trying to make out shapes in the gloom. The moon occasionally peeked through scattering clouds, providing brief moments of silvery illumination before disappearing again. A rustle in the tall grass nearby made Lily freeze. Her mind conjured images of the men from the mill, tracking them through the darkness, or worse, mountain lions sometimes came down this far when prey grew scarce higher up. She held her breath, listening intently. The rustling came again, closer this time. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as she instinctively moved to stand between the sound and her grandmother. A small form darted across her path, just a rabbit, spooked by their presence. The relief made Lily's knees buckle. She caught herself before falling, but the close call underscored her deteriorating condition. Her body was reaching its absolute limits. "Not much further," she whispered, though the words rang hollow even to her own ears. The temperature continued to drop in the storm's wake. Lily's breath came in visible puffs, and her wet clothes had become stiff with cold. Hypothermia, she remembered from a school lesson, happened when your body got too cold for too long. Was that happening to her now? To Grandma? The question spurred her forward with renewed urgency. She couldn't stop, couldn't rest, no matter how desperately her body craved it. If she lay down now, she might never get up again. Ahead, something large loomed in the darkness. The abandoned tractor Mr. Peterson had left at the field's edge years ago. Lily recognized its distinctive silhouette, and with it came a jolt of hope. The tractor meant they were close to the barbed wire fence that separated the field from the road leading into town. "We're getting closer," she told Grandma, her voice stronger now. "The fence is just past the tractor, and then it's a straight shot to Mrs. Holloway's house on the corner." Mrs. Holloway, a retired nurse who had once checked Lily's throat when she had strep and the roads were too icy for the drive to the doctor, Mrs. Holloway, who kept her porch light on all night and whose phone would surely be working even if the power was out in parts of town. The barbed wire fence presented one final obstacle. Too high for Lily to lift the tarp over, too dangerous to drag Grandma beneath with its rusty barbs hanging low in places. Lily followed the fence line, searching for the gate she knew existed, somewhere along its length. By moonlight, she finally spotted it, a simple metal gate with a loop of chain holding it closed. Her fingers, numb and clumsy, struggled with the unfamiliar mechanism. After several frustrated attempts, the chain gave way, allowing the gate to swing open with a protesting creak. Beyond the gate lay Pinewood proper, civilization, people, help. Lily's heart soared as she pulled Grandma Ellie through, leaving the wilderness behind at last. The road into town stretched before Lily like a ribbon of black satin in the moonlight. Unlike the uneven terrain of the forest and fields, this asphalt surface allowed the tarp to slide more easily, a small mercy for her depleted muscles. Still, each step required conscious effort, her body moving on determination alone, physical reserves long since exhausted. To keep herself awake and moving, Lily began recalling Grandma Ellie's stories, the ones told around their wood stove, on winter evenings, or whispered at bedtime when sleep proved elusive. "Remember the story about Great-Grandma Rose?" Lily asked the silent form on the tarp. "How she walked 10 miles through a blizzard to get medicine for her baby brother." Great-Grandma Rose had been one of Grandma Ellie's favorite subjects. A woman who homesteaded alone after her husband died, raising 3 children and maintaining their mountain property through sheer force of will. "You said I have her eyes," Lily continued, her breath creating small clouds in the cold night air. "And her stubbornness, too." The memory of Grandma's laugh when she'd said this, warm and rich like honey, gave Lily strength for another few steps. Then there was the story of Grandpa Thomas, who Lily had never met. How he'd once carried Grandma across a flooded stream when they were courting, refusing to let her miss her sister's wedding despite the rising waters. "You told me he never once complained about the weight," Lily said, though his shoes were ruined, and he caught an awful cold afterward. Grandma had always emphasized the quiet strength in that story, not the dramatic rescue, but the matter-of-fact way Grandpa had done what needed doing, then faced the consequences without complaint. As the first houses of Pinewood came into view, dark shapes against the night sky, most windows black from the power outage, Lily recalled perhaps the most important story of all. The one about her own mother, Sarah. "You told me Mom was the bravest person you ever knew," Lily whispered, her voice catching, how even when she was sick, she never stopped fighting. Lily had been too young when her mother died to remember much, just impressions of a gentle voice, the scent of lavender, a smile that crinkled around the eyes. But through Grandma's stories, Sarah had remained a presence in their lives, a standard of courage to aspire to. She would be so proud of you, Grandma had often told Lily. She had the same spark in her eyes, the same way of facing challenges head-on. A dog barked somewhere in the distance, the sound oddly comforting after hours of wilderness silence. Lily was re-entering the world of people, of help, of safety. Yet still, no lights appeared in any windows, no cars passed on the road. The power outage seemed to encompass the entire town, and at this late hour, most residents were likely asleep. "Almost there," Lily encouraged herself, focusing on the silhouette of Mrs. Holloway's house just a few hundred yards ahead. "Almost there, Grandma." Her legs trembled violently with each step now, threatening to buckle completely. The cold had seeped so deeply into her bones that she could no longer feel her feet at all. But Grandma's stories kept her moving, tales of family strength and perseverance spanning generations. Another of Grandma's favorites came to mind, the story of Cousin Jack, who'd gotten lost in these very mountains as a boy and survived 3 days alone before finding his way back. He followed the stars, Grandma would say, just like I taught. Him. The North Star never steers you wrong. Lily glanced up at the night sky, finding the North Star gleaming steadily above. It seemed to wink at her, acknowledging her journey. You taught me well, Grandma, Lily murmured, her voice barely audible now. All your stories, all your lessons, they got us here. Mrs. Holloway's house was close enough now that Lily could make out the shape of the porch swing, the flower beds along the front walk, just a little further, just a few more steps. We're going to make it, she promised Grandma Ellie, summoning the last dregs of her courage. And someday they'll tell stories about us too. The first streetlight Lily encountered stood dark and silent, a victim of the power outage that had claimed the entire town. Without its familiar glow, Pinewood seemed transformed into something alien and unwelcoming. Houses she'd known all her. Life loomed like sentinels in the darkness, their windows blank and unseeing. "Hello?" Lily called out, her voice thin and reedy in the night air. "Is anyone awake? We need help." Only silence answered her plea. The storm had driven everyone indoors, and without electricity, most had likely gone to bed early. Lily fought, back tears of frustration, to have come so far, endured so much, only to find the town as empty as the wilderness they'd left behind. Mrs. Holloway's house stood just ahead, its familiar outline a beacon of hope, despite its darkened windows. Unlike the other homes, which sat back from the street behind neat lawns, the old nurse's cottage pressed close to the sidewalk, its front porch just steps from where Lily now stood. "Almost there, Grandma," she whispered, her throat raw from cold and exertion. "Mrs. Holloway will know what to do." The short walkway to the porch might as well have been miles long. Lily's legs moved in jerky, uncoordinated steps, her body pushed well beyond its natural limits. The tarp dragged behind her, its precious cargo leaving a trail in the light dusting of frost that had begun to form on the ground. 3 porch steps. Just 3 steps separated Lily from her goal. She managed the first one, pulling the tarp up behind her with a strength born of desperation. The second step nearly defeated her, her foot slipping as she tried to hoist both herself and Grandma. On the third attempt she succeeded, though the effort left her gasping for breath. 1 more step. Lily braced herself against the porch railing, summoning the last reserves of her determination. With a final, trembling effort, she pulled Grandma's tarp completely onto the porch. "We made it," she said, her voice breaking. "We're here." The doorbell, like everything else electric, wouldn't function. Lily raised her hand to the wooden door and knocked, the sound pathetically feeble even to her own ears. She tried again, putting all her remaining strength into making herself heard. "Please," she whispered, as much a prayer as an entreaty. "Please be home." No response came from within the darkened house. Lily's heart sank as she realized Mrs. Holloway might not be there at all. She sometimes visited her daughter in the city, leaving the house empty for days at a time. Panic threatened to overwhelm her. They couldn't have come this far for nothing. Grandma Ellie needed help now. Her breathing had grown more labored during the final stretch of their journey, her skin taking on a waxy pallor that frightened Lily more than anything they'd encountered in the forest. Desperate, Lily moved to the window beside the door, cupping her hands against the glass to peer inside. The interior was dark, but she could make out the familiar shapes of Mrs. Holloway's furniture, the oversized armchair, the collection of ceramic cats on the mantel. Was that movement in the far corner, or just shadows playing tricks on her exhausted mind? Lily returned to the door, pounding now with both fists, no longer caring if she seemed rude or woke the neighbors. "Help! Please help us! My grandma is sick." The sound of her own voice, so small against the vast silence of the sleeping town, broke something inside Lily. She slumped against the door, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling uncontrollably from cold and exhaustion and fear. "I did everything I could," she told Grandma, crawling back to curl up beside the still form on the tarp. "I'm sorry it wasn't enough." As consciousness began to slip away, Lily became aware of a faint glow approaching from down the street, a flashlight beam bobbing in the darkness, accompanied by the sound of footsteps. Someone was coming. Someone had heard. "Help!" Lily called, her voice barely more than a whisper now. "Please, help us!" The light drew closer, swinging upward to illuminate the porch where grandmother and granddaughter lay. The last thing Lily saw before darkness claimed her was a face peering down, eyes widening in shock, mouth forming words she couldn't hear as the world faded to black. Consciousness returned to Lily in fragments, warmth first, then the softness. Beneath her, finally the murmur of adult voices nearby. She blinked against the gentle glow of candlelight, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling above her. "Grandma?" The word escaped her lips before memory fully returned. A face appeared in her field of vision. Not Grandma Ellie, but Mr. Peterson, the hardware store owner who lived 3 doors down from Mrs. Holloway. "She's awake," he called over his shoulder to someone Lily couldn't see. "The little one's awake." Lily struggled to sit up, her body protesting every movement. Someone had wrapped her in blankets and changed her wet clothes for an oversized t-shirt that hung past her knees. Her feet, cleaned and bandaged, throbbed with a dull, persistent ache. "Where's my grandma?" she asked, panic rising as the events of the day came rushing back. "Is she okay?" Mr. Peterson's expression tightened. "They're taking care of her, sweetheart. Don't you worry." Lily looked past him, taking in her surroundings. She was in Mrs. Holloway's living room, lying on the sofa. Candles provided the only illumination, confirming the power outage continued. Through the doorway to the kitchen, she could see several adults huddled in conversation. Mrs. Holloway herself, Sheriff Taylor, and Dr. Mason, who ran the town's small medical clinic. "I need to see my grandma," Lily insisted, pushing away the blankets despite her weakness. "Now hold on there," Mr. Peterson said, gently restraining her. "You've been through quite an ordeal. Doctor says you need to rest." "But Grandma needs me," Lily argued, tears welling in her eyes. "I promised I wouldn't leave her." Dr. Mason approached, alerted by the commotion. His kind face, usually smiling during Lily's checkups, looked grave in the candlelight. "Lily," he said, kneeling beside the sofa to meet her at eye level, "you did an incredible thing today, truly remarkable, but your grandmother is very ill. We're doing everything we can for her right now." "Is she going to die?" Lily asked directly, refusing to be shielded from the truth. Dr. Mason sighed deeply. "I don't know, honey. She's had a stroke. That's when something blocks the blood going to the brain. The fact that she's gone untreated for so many hours. Well, it's concerning. We're trying to stabilize her until we can get her to the hospital in Marion." "Why can't we go now?" Lily demanded. "The storm took down trees across the main road," Sheriff Taylor explained, joining the conversation. "Emergency crews are clearing it, but it'll be another hour at least. The ambulance is standing by." A new fear gripped Lily. "But Grandma needs help now. I didn't drag her all this way just to—" Her voice broke, unable to complete the terrible thought. The adults exchanged glances that Lily recognized all too well, the look grown-ups gave each other when they thought a child couldn't understand the gravity of a situation. "I'm not a baby," she said firmly, sitting up straighter despite her exhaustion. "I carried Grandma through the forest and across the creek. I kept her safe from bad men and storms. I got her here, so don't look at me like I can't handle the truth." A moment of surprised silence followed her outburst. Then, unexpectedly, Mrs. Holloway laughed, a short, startled sound quickly stifled. "She's right," the retired nurse said. "We're treating her like a child when she's proven herself anything but." She turned to Lily with newfound respect. Your grandmother is in my bedroom. She's unconscious but fighting. Would you like to see her?" Lily nodded, relief washing over her. She attempted to stand, but found her legs unwilling to cooperate. Without a word, Dr. Mason scooped her up, blankets and all. "Let me help," he said simply. As he carried her toward the bedroom, Lily caught fragments of Sheriff Taylor's conversation with Mr. Peterson. Never would have believed it possible. Nearly 4 miles in that storm. Carrying someone 3 times her size. Their words confirmed what Lily had known all along, that what she'd done was extraordinary, impossible even. Yet she'd done it anyway, because Grandma needed her, because promises mattered, because love, it turned out, could make even the smallest person capable of heroic things. The bedroom was hushed, lit only by a single candle on the nightstand. Lily's eyes went immediately to the figure on the bed, Grandma Ellie, looking small beneath a mound of blankets. An oxygen mask covered her face, connected to a portable tank beside the bed. Mrs. Holloway had clearly maintained her nursing equipment even in retirement. Dr. Mason gently placed Lily on the chair, positioned beside the bed. 10 minutes, he said softly. Then you need to rest again, doctor's orders. Lily nodded, not taking her eyes off her grandmother. Doctor's orders. Lily nodded, not taking her eyes off her grandmother. Once alone, she reached out to take Grandma's hand, careful not to disturb the ancient-looking blood pressure cuff attached to her arm. "I got us here, Grandma," she whispered, "just like I promised." From the living room came the sound of the front door opening, followed by unfamiliar voices. Lily paid little attention until footsteps approached the bedroom, and a woman appeared in the doorway, tall, with silver-streaked, dark hair and concerned eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Hello," the woman said softly. "You must be Lily. I'm Sarah Jenkins." Lily stared at the stranger, confusion momentarily overriding her focus on Grandma Ellie. "Mr. Jenkins's daughter?" she asked, remembering their neighbor who'd gone to a wedding. Sarah nodded, entering the room with quiet steps. "My father couldn't make it back yet. The roads from the east are still blocked, but I was already in Marion when the storm hit. Sheriff Taylor radioed about your grandmother." She moved to the opposite side of the bed, checking the oxygen flow with practiced movements. "I'm a neurologist, a brain doctor." Understanding dawned on Lily. "You can help, Grandma." "I'm going to try," Sarah replied, her tone gentle but honest. "Dr. Mason called in a favor when he learned I was nearby. The ambulance team has been briefed, and there's a surgical team on standby at Marion General." Hope, fragile but persistent, bloomed in Lily's chest. She watched as Sarah examined Grandma Ellie with careful precision, checking her pupils, monitoring her pulse, speaking in quiet medical terminology to Dr. Mason, who had rejoined them. "The window for effective treatment is closing," Sarah explained, noticing Lily's attentive gaze. "But your grandmother is remarkably strong, and thanks to you, she has a fighting chance." Lily absorbed this information, clinging to the words, "fighting chance," like a lifeline. "The ambulance should be here soon," Dr. Mason added, "as soon as the road—" A commotion from outside interrupted him, flashing lights visible through the window, the distinctive rumble of a heavy vehicle. "They're here," Mrs. Holloway called from the living room. "Road's clear enough." What followed was a blur of activity. Paramedics entered with a stretcher, their movements quick but careful as they transferred Grandma Ellie, attached monitoring equipment, and prepared her for transport. Sarah Jenkins directed the process with calm authority, ensuring everything was done correctly despite the challenging conditions. "Can I come too?" Lily asked, as they prepared to move Grandma to the ambulance. Sarah knelt beside her chair. "You need medical attention yourself, sweetheart. Dr. Mason will bring you to the hospital once you're stabilized, and I promise to take excellent care of your grandmother until you arrive." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. The thought of separation, after everything they'd been through, was almost unbearable. Sarah seemed to understand. From her pocket, she produced a simple braided bracelet of colorful threads. "My daughter makes these," she explained, tying it gently around Lily's wrist. "She says they keep special people connected, even when they're apart. I was bringing it to her tomorrow, but I think you need it more." The unexpected kindness from this stranger, this doctor who had appeared precisely when needed, broke through Lily's remaining defenses. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the bracelet. "Thank you," she whispered. Sarah squeezed her hand. "No, Lily, thank you. What you did today." She shook her head, momentarily at a loss for words. "Well, let's just say I've been a doctor for 20 years, and I've never seen courage quite like yours." As the paramedics wheeled Grandma Ellie away, Sarah paused at the doorway. "She's in good hands now," she promised. "You kept her alive long enough for us to help. That's the most important part of medicine, getting the chance to try." With that, she was gone, following the stretcher to the waiting ambulance. Lily watched through the window as flashing lights disappeared down the street, carrying her grandmother toward help and hope. The clock on Mrs. Holloway's wall read 3:17 a.m. when Dr. Mason finally deemed Lily stable enough for transport. Though he'd wanted her to sleep longer, Lily's insistence had grown increasingly determined until even the kindly doctor relented. "Your feet need proper treatment at the hospital anyway," he conceded, carefully wrapping them in fresh bandages. For the journey, Sheriff Taylor's cruiser waited outside, engine running, headlights cutting through the lingering mist. The power remained out across Pinewood, but emergency generators hummed at essential buildings, signs of the town slowly recovering from the storm's assault. "Marion General is 40 minutes away in good conditions," Sheriff Taylor explained, as he helped settle Lily in the back seat, a mound of blankets tucked around her small frame. "We'll make it in 30. Dr. Mason climbed in beside her, medical bag clutched on his lap. "I'll monitor her vitals on the way," he assured Mrs. Holloway, who hovered anxiously on the porch, "and call with updates about both of them." The cruiser pulled away, its tires hissing on the wet asphalt. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching Pinewood blur past, the darkened storefronts, the elementary school where just yesterday she'd been an ordinary second grader, the park where she and Grandma often fed ducks on Sunday afternoons. How strange that everything looked the same when nothing was. "How long has it been?" she asked suddenly, turning to Dr. Mason. "Since Grandma got sick?" He checked his watch. "Nearly 15 hours, I'd estimate, based on when you found her." 15 hours? An eternity compressed into a single day? Lily closed her eyes, remembering Grandma collapsed on the kitchen floor. The desperate journey through forest and stream, the men at the mill, the bridge collapse, the endless pulling of the makeshift sled. "Dr. Jenkins, Sarah, she'll help her." "Right?" Lily asked, needing reassurance, as the gravity of those lost hours weighed on her. "If anyone can, it's Sarah," Dr. Mason replied honestly. "She's one of the best neurologists in the state. That's why I called her immediately when we realized what had happened." Sheriff Taylor navigated the cruiser around debris still littering the main road, branches and roadside gravel displaced by the storm. True to his word, he drove with purposeful haste, lights flashing though he kept the sirens silent in deference to Lily's exhaustion. "You know," he said, eyes meeting hers briefly in the rearview mirror, "when I first heard what you'd done, I didn't believe it, thought it was some kind of exaggeration." "But it wasn't," Dr. Mason added. "The evidence was right there, your injuries, the condition of the tarp, the distance covered." Lily didn't respond. What she'd done didn't feel extraordinary to her, just necessary, the only option available when Grandma needed help and no one else was there to provide it. As they crested the ridge that separated Pinewood from the larger valley beyond, Lights of Marion came into view, a constellation of electric brilliance against the dark landscape. Somewhere in that glow was the hospital, and Grandma Ellie and the doctors racing to save her. "Almost there," Sheriff Taylor announced, accelerating, as they hit the straight stretch of highway leading down into the valley. Lily clutched the braided bracelet Sarah had given her, its colorful threads a tangible connection to the woman working to save Grandma. The simple kindness of that gift, offered in a moment of fear and separation, felt like a promise. The hospital emerged from the darkness, its emergency entrance blazing with activity despite the late hour. Sheriff Taylor pulled directly to the ambulance bay, where a nurse already waited with a wheelchair. "They're expecting you," Dr. Mason explained as he helped Lily from the car. Sarah called ahead. As they wheeled her through automatic doors, into the bright fluorescent interior, Lily felt the weight of the day's journey settle fully upon her. They had made it. Against impossible odds, through wilderness and storm, past dangers seen and unseen, they had reached help. Now it was up to the doctors to do what she could not, to bring Grandma Ellie back from the precipice her stroke had pushed her toward. All Lily could do was wait and hope and hold tight to the colorful threads around her wrist. The pediatric treatment room buzzed with quiet efficiency as nurses attended to Lily's injuries. They cleaned and bandaged her feet, applied salve to rope burns around her waist, checked for signs of hypothermia, and connected an IV to restore fluids and nutrients. Through it all, Lily remained silent, answering their questions with only the briefest responses, her thoughts firmly fixed on Grandma Ellie. "Your grandmother is in surgery now," explained a kind-eyed nurse named Elena as she tucked a heated blanket around Lily's shoulders. "Dr. Jenkins is working to clear the blockage in her brain. It might take several hours." Lily nodded, fingers absently tracing the braided bracelet. "Can I see her after?" "She'll need recovery time, sweetheart. But we'll keep you updated every step of the way." After the medical team finished their work, Lily was transferred to a regular room with pale blue walls and a window overlooking the hospital's garden courtyard. Dawn had begun to break, painting the eastern sky with tentative strokes of pink and gold. A new day, though Lily felt as if she'd lived a lifetime since yesterday morning. Sheriff Taylor appeared briefly, awkward in the hospital setting but determined to check on her. "Your principal called when I radioed in. The whole town's talking about what you did. They're organizing help for when you both return home." The thought of home, the cabin with its crooked porch steps and Grandma's flower beds, brought a fresh wave of longing. Would they ever return to that life? Or had everything changed irreversibly when Grandma collapsed on the kitchen floor? Dr. Mason entered next, having assisted with Lily's admission while coordinating with the medical team treating Grandma Ellie. He carried a paper bag that emitted the promising scent of warm food. "Hospital breakfast won't arrive for another hour," he explained, unpacking a sandwich and apple juice. "Thought you might be hungry now." The simple act of kindness, remembering she hadn't eaten in nearly 24 hours, brought unexpected tears to Lily's eyes. She accepted the food with shaking hands, suddenly aware of the hollow ache in her stomach. "Any news?" she asked between careful bites. "Surgery's progressing. Sarah's using a new procedure to remove the clot. Your grandmother's vitals are stable. She's fighting hard." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Lily, I need to ask you about something. When you found your grandmother, was she able to communicate at all? Any words or movements?" Lily closed her eyes, recalling those terrible first moments. "No, she was just lying there. I tried to wake her, but she wouldn't open her eyes." Dr. Mason noted this information in a small notebook. "And during your journey, any responses?" Near the end, her eyelids fluttered once, and she made a small sound when we were hiding from the men at the old mill. Lily looked up anxiously. Is that important? Every detail helps us understand her condition, he assured her. You've been very observant. As morning fully arrived, the hospital stirred to life around them. Shift changes brought new faces. The squeak of cartwheels echoed down hallways, and somewhere nearby a television murmured the day's news. Through it all, Lily waited, time stretching like taffy, too slow and somehow too quick. Mrs. Holloway appeared mid-morning, having hitched a ride with a delivery truck heading to Marion. She brought clean clothes for Lily and updates from Pinewood. Power had been restored to most of the town. Crews were assessing the collapsed bridge. Mr. Peterson and others had retrieved Lily's abandoned slippers from the forest path. These ordinary details from the world beyond the hospital walls seemed surreal to Lily, disconnected from the intense focus of her waiting. Shortly before noon, a light knock preceded Sarah Jenkins's entrance. Still wearing surgical scrubs, her face etched with fatigue but eyes clear and focused, she sat gently on the edge of Lily's bed. "The surgery is complete," she said, taking Lily's small hand in hers. "We successfully removed the clot. Your grandmother is in recovery now." "Is she?" Lily couldn't form the critical question, fear choking the words. Sarah squeezed her, and "She's alive, Lily. The next 24 hours will be crucial, but she's stable, and I believe she has something worth fighting for." The ICU operated by its own rhythm, distinct from the ordinary world. Machines beeped in measured intervals. Nurses moved with purposeful efficiency, and time seemed suspended in the harsh fluorescent light that never dimmed. Lily sat beside Grandma Ellie's bed, perched on a chair boosted by pillows to compensate for her small stature. Despite the doctor's initial reluctance, Sarah Jenkins had arranged for Lily to visit once Grandma had been stabilized in recovery. "Family is medicine too," she'd insisted, when the head nurse questioned the wisdom of allowing a child in intensive care. Grandma Ellie looked different here. Smaller somehow, her silver hair hidden beneath bandages, her face partially obscured by the oxygen mask. Tubes and wires connected her to monitors that tracked vital signs with glowing numbers and undulating lines. "You can talk to her," encouraged Nurse Teresa, adjusting an IV drip. "Hearing is often the last sense to go and the first to return. She might understand more than we think." Lily nodded, though the words wouldn't come at first. What could she possibly say that would bridge the gulf between them, between the vibrant, strong woman who had taught her to fish and chop kindling, and this still figure fighting for life in a hospital bed? When Nurse Teresa stepped away to check on another patient, Lily finally found her voice. "The birds will be back at our feeder this morning," she began softly. "The red ones, cardinals, that you like so much. And the chipmunk probably stole the seeds again." She paused, watching, for any sign that Grandma could hear her. "I checked before we left." The steady beep of the heart monitor continued unchanged. "Dr. Jenkins, Sarah, says you're doing better than expected," Lily continued, her small fingers gently wrapping around Grandma's limp hand. "She says you're strong. I already knew that, though." As afternoon faded into evening, Lily maintained her bedside vigil. Dr. Mason had convinced her to use a wheelchair due to her injured feet, but she refused to return to her own room for rest. Sarah checked in regularly between her rounds, bringing juice boxes and sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. "Any changes?" she asked softly during her evening visit. Lily shook her head, exhaustion evident in the dark circles beneath her eyes. "She hasn't moved at all." Sarah checked the monitors, then made a small adjustment to one of the medications flowing into Grandma's IV. "Recovery isn't linear, Lily. The brain needs time to heal." After Sarah left, the ICU grew quieter as the night shift began. The lights dimmed slightly, though never completely. Lily found herself nodding off, her head periodically dropping to her chest before she jerked awake again. "I should tell you about our trip," she murmured drowsily to Grandma. "It was quite an adventure, just like in your stories." She described the forest path, the creek crossing, the men at the mill, and the bridge collapse, each challenge recounted with the simple clarity of a child who had survived them. "I used everything you taught me," Lily continued, her voice growing heavier with approaching sleep. "About the creek, and following stars, and being brave even when you're scared." Her head drooped once more, this time coming to rest against the edge of Grandma's bed. The day's exhaustion finally claimed her, pulling her into deep sleep despite the uncomfortable position. She didn't see the first flicker of movement, Grandma's index finger twitching slightly against the white sheet. Nor did she notice when, minutes later, Grandma's eyelids fluttered open briefly before closing again. It was the change in pressure around her fingers that finally roused Lily, the sensation of Grandma's hand weakly squeezing her own. She lifted her head, blinking away confusion as she focused on her grandmother's face. Grandma Ellie's eyes were open, unfocused and clouded with medication, but undeniably open. Her lips moved beneath the oxygen mask, forming shapes without sound. "Grandma?" Lily whispered, afraid to believe what she was seeing. Grandma's gaze slowly shifted toward Lily's voice, recognition dawning in her eyes. Her fingers tightened, fractionally around Lily's hand, a gesture more eloquent than any words could have been. "Nurse!" Lily called, her voice breaking with emotion. "Nurse! She's awake! My grandma's awake!" 3 weeks after the night that changed everything, Lily sat on the passenger side of Sarah Jenkins' car as they crested the ridge overlooking Pinewood. The valley spread below them, spring green and peaceful in the afternoon sunlight, showing few remnants of the storm that had ravaged it last month. "Ready?" Sarah asked, glancing at her young passenger. Lily nodded, her gaze fixed on the approaching town. After 21 days of hospitals, rehabilitation centers and medical tests, they were finally going home. She and Grandma Ellie both. Grandma dozed in the back seat, still frail but improving daily. The stroke had affected her left side, leaving weakness that would require ongoing therapy, and her speech remained slightly slurred. But the doctors called her recovery remarkable, a testament to her underlying health and the swift intervention made possible by Lily's extraordinary journey. As they entered Pinewood proper, Lily noticed something unusual. The streets weren't empty as they normally would be on a Tuesday afternoon. People lined the sidewalks, some holding handmade signs, others waving as Sarah's car passed. "What's happening?" Lily asked, pressing her face closer to the window. Sarah smiled mysteriously. "Looks like a welcoming committee." The crowd thickened as they approached the town square. Banners stretched across the main street, reading "Welcome Home Lily and Ellie" in bright letters. The entire town seemed to have gathered, shopkeepers, teachers, farmers from outlying properties, children from Lily's school. "I don't understand," Lily whispered, overwhelmed by the display. In the back seat, Grandma Ellie had awakened, her eyes widening at the sight. "They're here for you, Lily girl," she said, her voice soft but clear, "for what you did." Sarah pulled the car to a stop near the crowd's edge. Sheriff Taylor approached, opening Lily's door with ceremonial flair. "Miss Lily," he said formally, "Pinewood would like to welcome you and Mrs. Ellie home properly." What followed felt like a dream. The mayor spoke briefly about courage and community spirit. Lily's teacher presented a book of cards made by her classmates. Mrs. Holloway stepped forward with a handmade quilt sewn by the church ladies' circle, embroidered with a map of Lily's journey from cabin to town. "So you'll always remember what you're capable of," she explained, wrapping it around Lily's shoulders. But the most surprising moment came when Mr. Peterson wheeled forward a gleaming bicycle. red with silver streamers dangling from the handlebars, and a wicker basket mounted on the front. "Your old one was a bit small anyway," he said gruffly, patting the seat. "This one should last you a good while." Through it all, Lily stood quiet and stunned, unused to being the center of attention. When Mayor Collins finally asked if she'd like to say something, she froze momentarily before looking to Grandma Ellie for guidance. Grandma nodded encouragingly from her wheelchair. "Speak from your heart," she whispered. Lily stepped forward, the colorful quilt still draped around her shoulders. The crowd hushed, waiting. "Thank you for the bike and everything," she began hesitantly. "But I didn't do anything special. I just did what needed doing." She glanced at Grandma Ellie. "Anyone would have done the same for someone they love." A murmur ran through the crowd, disagreement perhaps, or deeper appreciation for her modest assessment. Sheriff Taylor bent down to her level. "That's where you're wrong, Lily," he said gently. "What you did was extraordinary. And it's reminded all of us what we're capable of when someone needs us." After the formal welcome, the gathering transformed into an impromptu homecoming party. Tables appeared laden with casseroles and desserts. Someone brought out a fiddle, and cheerful music filled the square. Children who had previously known Lily only as a quiet classmate now approached with shy admiration, asking to hear her story firsthand. Through it all, Lily stayed close to Grandma Ellie's wheelchair, watching the celebration unfold with wonder. This was Pinewood, as she'd never seen it, united, joyful, and somehow altered by what had happened. "They'll talk about this for years," Grandma murmured, patting Lily's hand. "About the little girl who wouldn't give up." Lily shook her head, still uncomfortable with the attention. "I just wanted to bring you home, Grandma. And you did, Lily girl." Grandma's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "In more ways than one, you brought us both home." Summer sunshine streamed through the cabin windows, painting warm rectangles across the wooden floor where Lily sat, sorting through her collection of pine cones. 2 months had passed since their return to Pinewood, and life had settled into a new rhythm, different from before, yet comfortable in its own way. From the porch came the familiar cadence of Grandma Ellie's rocking chair, accompanied by the soft counting that marked her daily therapy exercises. 17, 18, 19, 20, she murmured, methodically opening and closing her left hand to strengthen muscles weakened by the stroke. Lily glanced out the window, reflexively checking on her grandmother, as she had countless times since that fateful day. Grandma caught her watching and smiled, the slight asymmetry of her expression a lingering reminder of how close they had come to losing each other. "I'm fine, Lily girl," she called, "just finishing my exercises." The reassurance was part of their new routine. So much had changed, yet the foundation remained. Their love for each other, the peaceful sanctuary of their mountain home, the simple pleasures of everyday life. Lily abandoned her pine cones and stepped onto the porch, settling beside Grandma in the smaller rocking chair Mr. Jenkins had crafted especially for her. The matching chairs had been a welcome home gift, delivered the week after their return. "Mrs. Holloway called while you were gathering pine cones?" Grandma said, her speech careful but clear. "She's bringing dinner tonight. Says she made too much stew again." Lily nodded, unsurprised. Since their return, the town's generosity had manifested in a steady stream of meals, visits, and offers of assistance. What had once been a relatively solitary existence for grandmother and granddaughter had expanded to include a caring community that checked in regularly. "And Sarah called too," Grandma continued. "She's coming up from Marion this weekend. Thought you might like to go fishing at the lake." Lily brightened at the mention of Sarah Jenkins, who had become a regular visitor and something of a bridge between their old life and new circumstances. The neurologist who had saved Grandma's life now occupied a special place in their small family circle. The telephone, newly installed and working reliably since the line had been repaired, represented another change. No longer isolated, they could reach help with the simple lift of a receiver. The cabin itself had seen modifications too. A ramp alongside the porch steps, handrails in strategic locations, and rearranged furniture to accommodate Grandma's initial need for a walker. "I've been thinking," Grandma said, her rocking chair maintaining its gentle rhythm, "about that day, about what you did." Lily tensed slightly. They rarely spoke directly about her journey, though it lingered between them like an unfinished conversation. "I remember bits and pieces now," Grandma continued, "waking briefly during the trip, the sound of your voice keeping me tethered when everything else was slipping away." Lily stared at her hands, unsure how to respond. "Dr. Mason said something interesting during my checkup yesterday," Grandma added. "He said sometimes the most extraordinary courage comes from ordinary love, that what you did wasn't a miracle. It was deeper than that. It was a choice made minute by minute, step by step." She reached across the space between their chairs, taking Lily's small hand in her still recovering one. "Thank you for choosing not to give up on me." Lily squeezed her grandmother's hand gently, accepting both the gratitude and the understanding that came with it. "You wouldn't have given up on me either." They rocked in companionable silence as afternoon shadows lengthened. Across the porch, from this vantage point, Lily could see the forest path where their journey had begun, no longer a place of fear, but simply part of the landscape of their lives. In the distance, thunder rumbled softly, another storm approaching, but nothing like the one they'd weathered together. "Sounds like rain coming," Grandma observed. "Shall we go in and bake cookies for Mrs. Holloway?" Lily nodded, rising from her chair with the easy movement of a child whose body had long since healed, even as her heart and mind continued processing the journey that had changed her. As they moved inside together, Grandma walking slowly but steadily, Lily matching her pace without comment, the first raindrops began to fall, gentle and cleansing upon the cabin roof. Not every journey required physical heroics, Lily was learning. Sometimes the greatest courage lay in simply continuing forward, day by day together. Some journeys led away from home. Others, like theirs, led inexorably back, changed, strengthened, and all the more precious for having nearly been lost.